You know, folks, if you go out of your way to normalize people's behavior and you sane wash their insanity and you let them get away with certain crimes, there's no coming back from that. You never get to go back and correct it if you don't deal with it while it's happening. I'll just go back to the Bush administration, and I know we could go back further than that. We could go back to Nixon. We could go back even further than that. But let's just start with George W. Bush to make the point I want to make today. George W. Bush lied us right into the war in Iraq. He told us that Saddam Hussein was involved. He told us he had weapons of mass destruction. Those things turned out to be lies. And I remember a time when people were calling for Bush and Cheney to be held accountable for war crimes. And I remember hearing people say, if we get a Democrat elected, if we get Democrats back in charge, they will hold Bush and Cheney's feet to the fire. And then Barack Obama got elected. And I'm thinking, okay, here's the big moment. Here's the moment where he could hold Bush and Cheney accountable for the lies and the crimes that they committed. But instead, Barack Obama said, well, I think now it's time for us to heal as a nation. We have to move forward. We have to put this behind us. We're too divided. We need the country to unite. And I can respect that, but the only problem with that was Bush and Cheney got away with every bit of that. And years later, George W. Bush appeared on Ellen and showed her some paintings that he made, and he sat and had some candy with Michelle Obama, and everybody said, see, he ain't that bad. He wasn't really all that bad of a guy. And now here we are. We've lived through one Trump administration. Now we're living in the middle of the second one, and we're seeing his insanity get sane washed. We're seeing his abnormal behavior become normalized. And I really fear the day that one day we'll see him go on a talk show and laugh with the guests and eat some candy, and everybody will say, well, it's not as bad as it used to be. That's where I can see us heading, and we head there because we always allow these people to get away with everything, because one side, and it's usually the Democratic side, don't want to rock the boat and get people too mad. Well, that's already happened. We lived through Donald Trump's first presidency. He was impeached twice. He was a terrible president the first go around. And then if January 6th wasn't the deal breaker for you, if that wasn't the moment where you said, you know what, enough's enough. I've said so many times here on the channel, I've said, you know what, 2016, you wanted a populist, you wanted somebody different, you wanted a businessman to shake it up. Okay, I get it. I at least get where you're coming from. But if you lived through that administration and you saw that he didn't fulfill the promises he said he was going to fulfill, and then you saw what he was willing to do on January 6th, for all the Democrats who are afraid of what might happen if they go after somebody, look what happened on January 6th. It already boiled over. And it would boil over again if they go after them. But I truly don't give a shit, because are we always going to let people get away with these things? After January 6th, the Justice Department should have put their hammer down. Merrick Garland dropped the ball drastically. It's the biggest fumble in American history, because he didn't go for the throat. Because he was trying to go by the rule of law and trying to go by the timing of how everything is supposed to work. And now we have a president who is completely ignoring all of that. And now we're to the point where we're sitting here and you see so many people say, well, if we have a midterms, if we actually do have an election during the midterms, that's not normal, folks. It's not normal that we're even saying that out loud. And you'll hear someone interviewing someone on CNN. They'll say, well, if we respect the Constitution in 2028, then Donald Trump should be gone if we believe in the Constitution. This shouldn't be up for debate. But it is, because we always let people get away with something. Back during those Bush years, I wasn't on YouTube. I wasn't doing the kind of content that I do now. I used to write blogs on a website that's now defunct, and all those blogs were lost forever. But I was saying back then, during that time, if we let George W. Bush get away with this, then in time, there's going to be someone come along that's going to be worse, and we're going to look back and think George W. Bush was okay, but he wasn't. The guy should never get a pass. He was a terrible president who lied us into war, who kept us in war, and who deeply divided this country. But bad things continue to happen to the point that now we look back at him, and sometimes even I've said, well, yeah, I mean, now here I am agreeing with him. Now here I am agreeing with Dick Cheney. But it doesn't give them a pass for what they did. And here we go. We see Donald Trump defending himself now. After all that happened on January 6th, he gets himself reelected. Now the Epstein case is out there. And he's trying so desperately, and he keeps making one big giant blunder and one big giant gaffe after another. And politicians keep going out there and going to bat and saying, I don't believe this, I don't buy this. And the media keeps spinning it like, well, what does this mean for Trump? What's happening next? They won't go for the throat and call it for what it is because they're all scared to death that he's going to close them down. And again, that's a red flag. That's something that we should be talking more about. We have a president who shuts down media, who disagrees with him, who goes after late night comedians. But if we just sit back and sane wash all of this, and we sit back and roll with this, and we sit back and let it all go, and we never hold his feet to the fire, and there's never that moment where the Republicans say, you know what, we can't no longer defend this. You know, we can go back in time. If we was talking about Richard Nixon, it was the Republicans that brought him down. And it's going to have to be the Republicans this go around, but they have no spine. They have no backbone. They are so indebted to him, and money means more to them than anything, that they're willing to look past all of this, and they can't even entertain the idea that this dude whose fingerprints is all over Epstein. We joke here on the channel all the time and say there's more pictures of Trump with Epstein and Maxwell than there is of me and my grandmother, and that's the truth. And there's so many people who have accused Donald Trump of things over the years, and he was found liable of sexual abuse, and he defamed the victim. And one of the early things that should have knocked him off the campaign trail was when he was bragging about groping women. But somehow or another, they don't think the guy that bragged about groping women could ever be involved in anything sick and twisted when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. They literally sit back and think that this guy is squeaky clean. But they sit there and they try to same wash and they try to normalize it. And then the day will come when J.D. Vance is president, and I hope like hell this doesn't happen. Let's hope this is a scenario that I'm just making to make my point. But there will come the day that Vance will be in there doing 10 times worse than what Trump's doing, and Trump will reemerge on some talk show, or he'll go out at some event and sit beside Obama, and Obama will chuckle with him, and then people will sit and go, see there? He wasn't all that bad. Hell, I mean, I know he gives some mean tweets and everything, but he wasn't really all that bad, was he? That's what we've allowed to happen because we've never had a situation where a person in power, like a Bush, like a Cheney, like a Nixon, anyone, they were never really held to an account. I mean, Nixon resigned, but he lived out the rest of his life. He didn't go to jail. Nothing happened to him. Bush and Cheney the same way. Nothing happened to him. And I hate to say it, but nothing's probably going to happen to Donald Trump either. He'll just ride off into the sunset. I hate to see the library he'll build. It'll probably be as big as a damn state. And it will all just be a bunch of revisionist history of how great he was and how wonderful he was and what a patriot and what a champion he was. And he'll want to be on Mount Rushmore. And when he says things like, I want to be on Mount Rushmore or put me on the money, the media would just go out there and spin that, well, you know, Trump wants to be on Mount Rushmore, instead of saying, hey, wait a minute, buddy, ain't you been impeached twice? Weren't you the guy behind January 6th? Aren't you the one connected to this pedophile? Aren't you the one that's sending your lawyer to work out deals with a child sex trafficker and sending them to a cushy country club prison? Ain't you that guy? And that's why more and more people gravitate toward this type of media. They gravitate toward regular people talking about it before they will the mainstream media, because the mainstream media just flat out insults their intelligence. And so they're way more apt to sit and listen to people like them, just everyday people like them who are trying to make sense of it like they are. And folks, I completely missed this whole story about the Wired article that was accusing left-wing influencers of taking money. All I can say is that I was so busy doing what I do that I completely missed that story. I don't get a check from George Soros. I don't get a check from anybody. I'm not getting paid to do this. I have a YouTube channel. I work with the MeidasTouch network. That's that. But I've never had a script, never been told what to say, never been told what I couldn't say. I'm free to say what I believe, and I'm free to die on this hill, and this is the hill I'm willing to die on. I know I don't look the part. I know it would be very easy, and I've been accused from day one. From the very first time I ever said on the video, oh, wait a minute, hold on, that guy can't be real. That guy's got to be paid to say that. No, I'm not paid to say this. I believe in these things. And I believe in them so much that I was so caught up talking about it, I completely missed that story. But I do find it ironic that anyone would even bat an eye at it, because hell, Tim Pool, they found out he was taking money from the Russians, and the best defense he had was that he didn't know the dude was a Russian. But he was doing such a good job spreading Russian propaganda that they threw money behind him. So it's ridiculous where we're at in this world, and the things that we will allow to become sane, and the things we'll be allowed to normalize. But the left does need to build a stronger system. We do need to build people to be out here talking and going to bat and bringing it out, because the mainstream media won't. The mainstream media just continues to same-wash and normalize this. And that's why I've always said, I said it when it first happened, I was like, I don't care how many pieces of candy that Michelle Obama gives George W. Bush, he still deserves to be remembered in the history books for the terrible president he was, who lied us into a war. And once this is all done and over with Donald Trump, and we finally move past this, I don't want to see him out there on talk shows laughing it up on The View like it was some kind of joke, because that stuff just plays right into the hands of people who believes that the system was rigged. It's really hard to believe that the system is working in your favor when people's wrongdoing just always gets laughed off and sane washed.